Hi, good morning, guys. This tape is made mainly for my grandchildren, starting with Mandy, Zoe, Lily, Ajala, Tajara, and my new addition, Kearsley, who will be 2 years old in a few days' time. Uh, this is basically our history of who we are, what's our background, no matter what, who we marry, who we do not marry, and what children do we have. But you will have some traits of your father's, your grandfather's, and your grandmother's history behind you. Anyway, to start, uh, actually today is the 49th year I left India, November 14th, 1969. I remember very well, 7 o'clock in the morning. My flight was from Bombay to New Delhi to Iran, where I spent one day with my oldest brother, Gustar, who is now deceased. And then from there to London to spend 2 days with my sister, Gulu, and her husband, Hoshi, and their daughter, Farida. And from there I went to Amsterdam. KLM had a flight. And from then Amsterdam to New York. And New York I arrived. At that time, New York City was the main hub, JFK, for flights to come in from India, from overseas basically. Anyway, to start with, just to let you know, our background is Persian. Persians are the original people of Iran. We are the descendants of Aryan race from Russia down to Iran. Back in 750 AD, when Muslims attacked Iran to spread the religion, some of our ancestors ran away basically in three ships. One landed in East Africa near Kenya. Second one was in South Africa, and the third one was in India, in Gujarat, near Udwara. Since we came from Iran and we did not speak their language, our ancestors did not speak their language, we were all called Iranis because we came from Iran. We eventually, my father and his father and so on and so forth, up the chain, settled in Bombay. Bombay became a hub for all. Our religion is called Zoroastrian, and it goes back like 7,000 years ago. That's the first known monolithic religion on earth. But keeping that aside for now, so our ancestry started from Bombay. Now, let's go to my mother. My mother and your grandmother's mother. Your grandmother's mother was also named Shireen, and my mother's name was also Shireen. And English translation, basically loosely, it's translated to Sarah. In case anyone of you has a daughter, don't forget that name, Sarah. And since there were not many men, Zoroastrian men left in Iran, because the Zoroastrians are very close-knit people, and there were no. So my mother and your grandmother's mother were shipped out to India to get married to their respective husbands. Actually, that is my father and my father-in-law. Well, while on the ship, a boat as they called it, they became very good friends. Both were like 16 years old, nothing older, nothing younger, but they were 16 years old. They came to India. Actually, they landed in Bombay at that time. But when they landed in Bombay, they became very good friends. And they promised each other their daughters or sons to get married to each other. This is old times, and it still goes on some parts of India. Anyway, so my mother got married to my father. His name is Mirwan, Mirwan Irani at that time. Like I said, we were called Iranis. And my mother's name was Shirin Allahabadi, because she came from a town called Allahabadi. That's the way it was in the olden days. They were given the last name was attached to what the village came from, what village they came from. So my mother was called Allahabadi, and my your grandmother's mother, her name is Shirin Bia Banaki. Basically, Bia Banaki is also another small section. It's like a suburb. Just imagine a suburb of any town USA, large town USA, where we have suburbs. So Bia Banaki and Allahabadi. So anyway, your grandmother's mother got married. His name was Rustam Irani, and he had a bakery. And my mother married to Mirwan Irani, and he had a restaurant, but not in Bombay. It was outside Bombay, about 120 miles from Bombay, called city called Pune. Now it's called Pune. And so my mother had the first son, which is my brother Gustad, who's now deceased. And lo and behold, your grandmother had a daughter called Parveen, or they call Bala for short. Anyway, they were supposed to get married to each other. Then came my brother Rustam, and on her side came Shimin. Then came Zareen, and then came Jangir, Behram, Shapur, and your grandmother. Her name was Homai at that time. That's the name that she was born with. On my side was Gustad, Rustam, Freni, Gulu. Then I had a brother, his name was Rashid, and my other sister, Homai, and then me. My name, when my mother was pregnant for me, I do not know how many months, they have never told me that, but when she was pregnant for me, my older brother, Rashid, he was about 5 years old, and he was trying to catch a kite. A kite has lodged. We were living on the 5th floor. Or in India, we call it 4th floor, because we start with ground floor, 1st floor, like that. But US, we call it 1st floor, 2nd floor. So, for namesake, let's say it's 5th floor. Anyway, so he was flying a kite, I guess, and the kite got lodged in the roof of that. We were on the highest floor, roof of the house. He tried to dislodge it, he slipped, and he fell five stories down. He died. So since my mother was pregnant for me when I was born, that was a name given to me, Rashid, actually. I remember seeing my original birth certificate, it says Rashid on it. But then in India, they keep the mothers for like 5, 6 days, 7 days. This is olden times now, in the hospital. So on the 3rd or 4th day, I became very ill. And my mother had this dreams that I'm going to die, just like my older brother Rashid. So she changed my name to Gev, because she believed in that astrology, and the birth month and the time of the day and the date I was born on, my name should start with a G, R, or S. So Rashid was there, then came G, was Gev. Actually, in Iranian, Persian word, we call Giv, not Gev, Giv. Because my mother-in-law, ex-mother-in-law, late mother-in-law, I should say, your grandmother's mother, used to call me Giv. In fact, everybody used to call me Giv. That's the only thing is that it was difficult to say in India. And like in the United States, how we take somebody's foreign name and make it an American name. They made give to get. Anyway, 6 years old. To make this little bit short story, story a little bit shorter, it's very emotional. I cannot go into it. I went to orphanage, and it's called J.N. Pettit Technical High School. This used to be called a J.N. Pettit Orphanage, but then they changed the name to Technical High School, Technical School. And I spent my 10 years over there. I graduated in 1968. I was 16 and a half years old. 17 years old. Yeah, 16 and a half years old. Yeah. And at that time, we had 11th grade, 11th standards, SSC, Secondary School Certificate. They used to call that. So it's I got that. I never knew. I don't recall your grandmother at that time at all, ever meeting her. I do recall seeing her mother coming to our house, and we used to live on the, like I said, 5th floors, and there were no elevators in these old buildings. So it was climbing up the steps, and your grandmother's mom was also a little bit heavy set, so was my mother, was heavy set. And she could not climb up all the stairs. So they used to talk in, we don't call Persian language, Farsi, we call it Dari. What happened was when in 750, when Muslims attacked Iran, they quickly learned the Persian language. But for us to have our own language, we converted parts of it into what we call Dari. And that's how we survived in Iran at that time. But going forward, so I remember your grandmother's mom and my mom used to talk to each other from the window down. Both started yelling at each other, that's the only way the conversation was going on. We didn't have telephones at that time, we were very poor for that. And I remember her, but I don't recall your grandmother at all. Anyway, after I graduated, when I came back to Bombay, everybody was gone except my stepfather. I didn't know he was my stepfather. I did not know him. It was a surprise to me because my mother had remarried to one of our cousins. His name was Soli, and he was very nice. He was okay, but he was a gambler. He used to drink a lot, but he was mainly a gambler. So I came to India to an empty house, basically. My next door neighbor said, "Oh yeah, they all went to the United States." And I said, "Okay." I didn't know what to say. I survived for a year and a half. But the survival was basically extremely important because I had no food to eat, I had no money, and my stepfather did not give me any money or, basically, because I passed in one of the top 10 of the whole state of Maharashtra at that time, because when we give our SSC exam, is the whole state gives the exam. I came out like in top 10. I had 73% at that time. And I got the highest in the Hindi language, mechanical drawing, and algebra geometry. I got 100 out of 100. It's 200 algebra and geometry. So I got scholarships, which I used to get some money out of it so I could survive. I enrolled in, I never heard from my mother, not from my brother, nobody even told me. I didn't even know that my oldest sister, Franny, who was married to a man in India, they were living no more than like 10 miles from me. I didn't even know they existed. I didn't know where my other sisters were, nothing. Then my stepfather came over the weekend, and he told me basically that my Freddie had married to somebody called Kodabaks. He owns a restaurant called British Empire Restaurant. My second sister, Gulu, was married to, his name was Hoshi Lalinwala, and they had moved to UK. And my youngest sister, which is older to me, of course I'm the youngest, is in the United States, and she's studying over there with brother Rusi and Rustam, used to call it Rusi, and my mother, of course. And so, only thing I do recall is some of the places that my mother used to go visit her friends. So I used to go there during lunchtime and dinner time and hopefully eat something. Then I remembered I asked my stepfather about if anybody else my mother knew, and he said, yeah, there is a person called Shirin. She lives in Bandra. That's a suburb of Bombay at that time. It's still a suburb. And so for Bandra, I had to take a ticket, train ticket. I had no money, so I used to climb on the trains and run from the ticket masters and whatever I can. And then I used to walk from a train station to your grandmother's house. That's where you met your grandmother. Her name was Homai, and she was, I think, at that time was 14 and a half years old. She is 2 years younger than me. Anyway, so she used to give me food and everything, and she was very polite, and she was the only conversation I had. Of course, my mother-in-law was very nice, and she used to say, no, you to come here every day for dinner from now on, and we'll have dinner for you over here. So I made a point of going to Bandra, and that's how I came to know your grandmother. And I remember seeing her the first time. I'd gone early, and she was running with the boys with a long stick to catch the kites. There is in India, in Bombay especially, during the kite season, what they do is they cut each other's kite, and the people run to catch the kite. And there's some of them very nice looking kites. So your grandmother was one of them. She used to run with the boys, try to catch the kite. And that's where she got into an accident, and her arm was very badly ripped off. But luckily she was okay. Anyway, so we became good friends. I remember she's sitting in front of a mirror and she used to brush her hair. And I used to tell her, I said, what are you brushing for? She said, I'm brushing my hair before I go to sleep because I'm waiting for my prince to take me. Anyway. Oh, sorry about that. It's a little bit too emotional. And I used to tease her. I said, this so-called prince has to be a crazy guy to marry you. They said, you're a crazy woman. Anyway, so we were just joking around, kidding around, but nothing, thought never crossed my mind. And then eventually the day came, November 10th or 9th, day came where I had to go collect money from my sister-in-law at that time, Shimin, because my brother Rusi was going to get married to her as per the arrangement, so-called arrangement. And so he had sent her the money to purchase my ticket. So I had to go pay the travel agency the money to get my ticket and my visa to come to the United States. So I had gone with my cousin Sorab at that time. Sorab is my oldest, my mother's brother's son, oldest one. So I had gone with him, and your grandmother thought I was trying to fix her up with my cousin. I remember she was very, very rude that day, and I didn't quite get it, but I just had come to collect the money because it was a large sum, and we were going to go back in a train, and so I wanted my cousin to be there to make sure that I'm protected, and we were getting half and half money. So your grandmother thought I was trying to fake Sora with her, and she told me that later on. That's how I came to know, but I had no intention, nothing like that. So I got my ticket, and then November 14th, 1969. That's my travel date to the United States. The ticket came, and the ticket came that I had to go from here to New Delhi. Because remember, in those days, the planes were not like extended range planes where you can fly 14, 15 hours as you guys do nowadays. We were lucky if we flew more than 5 or 6 hours for that matter. And so from ticket was from, it was 7 o'clock in the morning. I remember that very well. So I went with my 2 bags. Nobody came to take me to the airport or nothing. I went by train from my house. My stepfather also didn't show up. He had passed away anyway by the time. It's another story on that one. So I was alone anyway. So I locked the house, gave the key to my neighbor. It was 3 in the morning. 2:30, 3 o'clock, yeah, something like that. Then I went to my sister-in-law's house, Parizad, first, and she had a package for me to take to give it to her husband, Gustad, that's my oldest brother, in Iran. She knew I was going to stop there for a couple of days, 1 day at least. So I picked up some package from there. This was basically fried pomfrets. Basically, 2 or 3 pomfrets were there, big ones. And then I went to my your mother's house, your grandmother's house, and I remember it was like 4 in the morning, and your mother was looking at me. Your grandmother was looking at me through the mirror, and I can see her, and she was like pretending to go to sleep, and because my late mother-in-law, she was preparing a cup of tea for me. And remember, this is all walking from a train station to the house, which is about a mile away, and with my 2 bags and what Parizad had given me, hand carry, and I was sweating like you wouldn't believe. Anyway, so I stopped at the house, I had a cup of tea, and she was looking at me. As soon as I would look to her through the mirror, she would close her eyes and pretend not to look, and then she opened one eye and looked at me. And so I came to the United States, and I started talking to my brother, Rustam, at that time, and we were just talking, and he said that I knew that he was getting ready to get married to your grandmother's sister, Shimin. And he was going to go to India in December. So about November time frame, in 69, I remember, but before he left for India, we just had a chat. And then he came to India, and I guess it did not work out. So when he came back, and he used to have a paper route, and so I used to go with him, and of course I had to work, so I had to go with him in a paper route. Then at that time we were talking, and he said, she has a very nice sister, Homai, and she's about 2 years younger than you. And says, have you thought about her? Because they did tell him that I used to come there for dinner every day. I said, yeah, I'm thinking about her. And I knew somebody's birthday. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say somebody. I knew it was her birthday. October 9th or September 10th. I do not recall actually, because it was in India we write the day first and then the month. Over here in the United States we write the month first and then the date. So I did not recall which way it went. So anyway, I decided to send her a birthday card, and that's how our correspondence started. And I sent her some clothes. I didn't know what her size was, and with whatever money I had, I purchased some clothes. It fitted her oldest sister more than anybody else, and then she sent me a couple of records. She knew I liked the two movies, Aradna and Kati Patang, and one of the songs that I liked was Meri Sapuno Ki Rani Kapagi to me. My dream girl. So she has sent me those two records. I used to play that on my old gramophone I used to have. And that's how we started writing each other, and we developed a friendship. And then she basically, she turned 18. And she was, I should say she was turning 18. She was not good at math and science at all. She barely passed SSC exam. I think she got like 46, 47%. But she passed. And in India, once you pass the exam for girls, majority of them, they tend to get them married as soon as possible. So this guy, his also name was Solu, by the way, came from Germany for proposal, and she was angry and she ran away and she wrote to me a letter saying, see, the proposals are coming, I don't know what to do, I wish you could respond. And so I talked to my brother Rusi, and we made an agreement. I cannot go too far in detail, but we made an agreement, and we sent her a visa. She came here October 21st, 1972. I remember that. I picked her from the airport, and she was so nervous, and we got married on December 21st, 1972. That's a very, very funny story because we were standing before, it was a civil marriage. The judge was a just here in Bloomfield, New Jersey. And the judge gave us a timing for marriage. It was like 8 o'clock in the evening. And we had to have 2 witnesses. So I went there, and he said, what's your full name? I said, Gav Mehrwani Rani. In India, we always put our father's name as the second name, so Gav Mehrwani Rani. And she asked, your grandmother? She says, Homai Rustam Irani. She says, are you two related to each other? I said, no. I said, in India, Irani is a very, very common name. It's like Smith or Jones over here. So I said, okay. Then he asked my brother Rusi. So Rusi said, Rustam J. Irani. He says, are you a father? He said, no, I'm his brother. He said, then how come she has the name Rustam? I said, well, Rustam is another common name. Then my cousin Rustam was the second witness. He said, what's your name? He said, Rustam Farham Irani. He said, what's going on over here? How many Rustams we have? How many Iranis do we have over here? So we had to explain to the judge the history, basically short form. He said, well, I'm going to remember this for a long time. And I still remember that. And we laughed, and we got married. Oh, then he asked me, he says, he asked your grandmother, says, hold, with your left hand, hold his hand. But he didn't say which hand. So I thought he was talking about my left hand. So I turned around the other way to hold my left hand with her left hand. And the judge says, what are you doing? I said, I'm holding a left hand to her left hand. That's what you said. He said, no, you don't. And so I held my right hand with her left hand. And so we got married. Farhad was born August 24th, 1973. He was a premature, I guess we call it, 1 month before. And we were just thinking about it. He actually his birth should have been afterwards, like towards my birthday, which is September 24th. But he decided to come 1 month early. And so his name was Actually, we started off with her brother's name, Behram, and so we put Behram over there. But then her mother got very upset, and she says, "That's her older brother. He had died of an asthma attack, and he had a heart attack due to asthma, and he had passed away at the age of 21." Behram. Her mother got very upset and said, "No, that the name cannot be there. Think about something else." So we changed to Farhad. And so his name was Farhad. The second one, then I joined military, and I was in the Air Force training at that time. And Zoleh was born. Actually, her name is Joleh. That's dewdrop. It's a Persian name. I like that very much. That's a very nice name. And I told your grandma, I say, if it's a girl, we'll name Joleh. If it's a boy, we'll name him Mirwan, after my father's name. But it was a girl, so we named her Joleh. And she was born February 13th. She couldn't wait for one more day either, to wait for Valentine's Day. Then we said, okay, we'll try for a son, because we had to have because my oldest brother Gustave, who, like I said, recently passed away, had 3 daughters. My brother Rustam cannot have children because he had some issues with his own issues, so he cannot have children. So though it was left to me, I guess, to have a boy to carry the father's name. So, and my oldest brother Gustave, when he came to the United States, he said, you should have a son, and you should try to name him Mirwan. So I talked to your mother, grandmother, and she said, okay. And so we had a 3rd child. And lo and behold, it was a boy. So we named him Mirwan. Born May 12, 1978. Anyway, my background, basically, I'm a chemical engineer, and with master's degree in occupational health and safety engineering. I have master's degree in industrial hygiene. I have a master's degree in nuclear engineering. I spent a lot of time in the Air Force, and then eventually went into process safety, which is making sure that review the designs of the plant to make sure they don't blow up. So that's our history, and so you do have a Persian blood, and maybe someday I'll explain to you more about our religion. Okay? I hope this helps, at least as a starting point. Take care. Love you guys. Bye-bye.